Hi guys, welcome back to this one. This is the part 2 of the engine harness build, an electrical system refresh of this 71 Celica. In the last one we just kind of went through the basic setup of what's going to be done, and in this one it's a whole lot of work. It's getting all the wires basically crimped and put into place, routed through the car, and having everything hooked back up, and hopefully see if we can get this thing fired up. Yeah, not much to say, just a lot to do, so let's get to it. Okay, what you just saw me doing was making sure that I have every wire that I need for the harness from the engine bay into the car. I've made this list where I basically put down everything I need. The top of the list is from the old harness, so I know where everything goes. And this is, well, a worksheet, kind of what you need for the new harness, and then adding more stuff and excluding stuff you don't need, and having your own system kind of to check everything off. And some of the new parts that we need is the wiring for the new alternator, which needs well, it has internal voltage regulation, so it needs a reference signal to regulate from. That's one of those. It needs another one from the switched ignition, and then it has one that goes into the car for charge light. And I don't really think the TA or the Celica has a charge light on the dash, but we'll find out. Otherwise, I might make something. Also, we need all the wires for the lights and relays for the relay box, because that is also an addition to this harness. And you pretty much saw me putting all this stuff in here. All this stuff corresponds to number 15. Then I go to this, number 15, signal starter. So I know this needs to go to this point here on the starter, where it will, of course, throw the relay and bridge or connect and let current flow through the starter. So that's that one. Let's just do another one for fun. 21. And 21 is for the charge light, which goes on the alternator. Also 19 is for ignition, switched ignition plus for alternator. And there's one more somewhere in here. Also wiring for, this is for the brake light. No, sorry, reverse light from the transmission. I'm gonna be doing a connector here so it's easy to get to, putting that into the main harness as well. But this is basically what is needed, I think. So next step is to make sure that I can crimp all this the way that we crimped all this. I think we need to make sure that yeah, we do need to make sure that everything runs as it needs, so we don't have anything connected up in both ends. That's where you won't be able to put any crimp on. So I think that the furthermost back of this harness piece is going to be the relay box. So I think we might need to do the relay box first. Haven't even done a bracket for it yet. I think that can wait. Right now it's just about a matter of getting all the wiring done and firing it up. see if it works. Yeah, let's do the relay box and crimp from there down to this piece where it will branch off to everything that the alternator, starter, temperature control, stuff like that is going to be, and from there it's pretty smooth sailing with one big crimp all the way back inside the car and onto the other harness and dash. So yeah, let's get the relay box in there and then work our way back from that. So this is basically the relay box done. Get some white on there. Not too crowded and made to fit exactly where it needs to be. Cable coming out, running down here, and going to be crimped into the main harness. Also, the next job is going to be wiring all the engine side up and making that into like one strand and then getting that crimped onto the main harness and back. So this next one is going to be not as difficult, but it's going to be some work because there's a lot lengthwise that needs to be solved because it goes up and then it goes to a lot of different directions. So I gotta make sure that I got all the length I need before I start crimping. Otherwise it's just gonna hang there and not look so good. So gonna try and keep it tidy. Try and keep it tidy. Okay, let's see what happens. Alright, this is mid-process of this. All the wires have been put on the starter, and all this stuff, these need to meet here and then join in one strand down to the main harness. But here we go, this is a problem. This is the one from the, remember we're going to bypass the ignition coil resistor on startup. This is the wire for that. It goes off the starter relay. But now this is connected to both ends. It's pretty hard to get a crimp on there. So you always got to keep in mind what goes where and when. So, and this is also the part where we need to join all all the stuff together. We have separate little piece from the horn. We have this from the this is from the relay box, from the to the headlights. All this from the engine, and all this stuff, ignition and whatnot, from the other side of the car. So, in order to get this as it should be, I hope I can get this back on. Otherwise, I'll just have to undo this again. Just pull this off. This is just connector like this. Then all the wires now, excluding these, I think, in first place, will need to go through yeah, I needed to think. We need them to go through this and to be glued. And remember, the only things that you want to put glue on is the pieces where you are actually going to crimp it on to something firm, and then outside of the crimp, never on the wire, because the wire needs to move freely inside of the crimp. And here is how it's done. You basically have your crimps in different sizes. This is one wire. So this is going to be going, oh sorry, 1 second. Let me just grab some light. I don't know if that did anything. But this is from the water temperature, coolant temperature. This is going to go down here, where all these wires are going to meet, just underneath the manifold. So this is going to be something like this length. So measure it out. Find some scissors, or whatever you're gonna need. Cut. And if you can, apply it from this side. If you can't, well, bad luck. You just gonna have to go through all your wires and put it on from the other side. And as I mentioned before, as long as the wires aren't hooked up in both ends, you can just basically do this. This is a little bit more tedious because this takes a little time and practice. So, whenever you can, do it from the other end of the cable. Because this is no bueno. I don't even know if I can do this. Oh, there it goes. And feed a little at a time. And as soon as you go through, you are golden. Then you're just gonna pull all the way through. There you go. Get in there to where it needs to be. Something like this. And with these guys, I want it to be as snug as possible. So that's basically it. Get your heat gun. And basically crimp it on there. So, one down, 9 million to go. Put this back when we need it. And root it in where we need it to be. And basically work your way back from there. Okay, now that we got this far, all the wires have been connected, has been made ready for doing this final connection between the engine part of the harness and the main part of the harness. Now it's time to do another thing that wasn't done on this car. This engine had no ground connection. It will probably be grounded through the bolts of the engine mounts if they go all the way through. I don't think they do on this model, on whatever cable is fitted on there, but basically no ground cable whatsoever, so that is going to impede start and ignition and everything really bad. Especially the ignition coil is going to strain a lot and eventually fail. So it's important to have very beefy ground. If you have if it's a modern engine, you have a lot of injection stuff like that, sensors, engine management, all kinds of stuff. It's also important on these old cars which run ignition coil. So I am going to be, again, the exactly same ground point as everything else. I'm going to make my own ground, keep it as short as possible, put it on the bottom where I bolt on the alternator. So that is going to be the first part. Then from there I'm going to make one more piece that is going to bolt up to the head, so that the head has ground as well and not just through the bolts and all that kind of stuff, because that is where the spark plugs are grounded. So that is going to be, again, as everything else on this electrical system, a massive improvement over the way that it was. So at some point when somebody did this engine swap, yeah, they did a piss poor job about all the electrics. So again, grounding, some of the most important stuff on this car is going to be this, and using the same ground, and again all the wiring and the gauge. The difference is just going to be amazing. Also, I was talking about using the LEDs for the fronts. I'm not going to get the retro brights just yet, the Holly retro brights. I've just ordered some Osram night breakers. They're, I think it's third or fourth generation night breakers, which promise 200% more brightness, not 200% more light. I guess it's either lumens or lux, and the lux is the light source brightness, and the lumen is the overall light. So 200% improvement in lux. That is going to be an insane improvement over these 4 bulbs that was badly connected before. So I can't wait to see the stock headlights with modern bulbs and a beefed up harness with a big alternator and supplied like it's supposed to. See what difference that makes. Because if it's not a projector headlight, you don't want to do LEDs. You want to do a specific LED headlight. If you put LED in these, where it's just a reflector headlight, it's just gonna be bad. It's gonna be all over the place. You're gonna be blinding everybody. So if you don't have that cutoff line, as you usually do if it is a projector headlight, use those with LEDs, or get LED inserts that is specific. On this, the halogen is the best, because the bulb and the pattern that is going to distribute the light is made to fit. So the light filament is in one place, and they tried to do the LED light source in the same place, but it will have 2 blind spots, so you'll have bright areas and you'll have spots that don't have enough light, and just don't do it. So that is also one of the things that I can't wait, and I can't wait to crank this thing over for the first time with all these new goodies, especially grounded and this new ignition stuff. Man, I hope it's just gonna spring into life and be as happy as ever. So, next part, grounding wires, connect it all, and then we're gonna run it into the car and get everything tucked under the dash, and then we have to start thinking about putting on the electrical power steering that we installed. We need a power supply for that. That draws some current. I think we're gonna be fused a 60 amp fuse, something like that. And then we need to put on some kind of way to control that, because the normal electric power steering has some references of the car, of the canvas system that it's taken from. It has a speed sensor, so it will be very sensitive at low speed or parking speeds, and as you go up driving faster, it will turn down the force that it will deliver, so that the steering won't be as nervous and easily turned. So that is one of the issues that we need to address. We can either put in a resistor of sorts to adjust it to my likings, so it's gonna be half bad at slow speeds, half bad driving speed. Or we can put in some sort of resistor that will follow the speed, like a speed signal. So that is some of the stuff that we need to think about. But I think at first let's just get it up and running, and then we will have that system incorporated as the last system before we close the harness up on that end. But now, ground wires. Okay, almost done with the harness. Next thing is, as I said, getting into the car, get everything connected up there. But, as I said, I had a little surprise. I will be building parts of the lower dash using this. Also, I'll be, the instrument gauge cluster is going to be done using some of this as well. So from E-Composite, I've gotten this, and this is a very, very sturdy piece of carbon. It's 1.5 millimeters thick, so in that perspective this is a little bit thicker than what most people they would use for plates and backing plates and all that kind of stuff in the race cars. Also, this is a double layer, not just one layer. You can see from the strands it runs two different directions. It is, if you hold it up in the light, no light is gonna pass. So that is also a way to see that this is not just some carbon that has been laid out and it's basically just resin. This is 2-layer of carbon. It is pretty flexible without breaking, and I hope that this is going to be able to, when cut, that we could get a little bend to it, a little radius, because I would like that. Then I have these old school style aluminum switches. I'll just show you here. They're pretty cool. There's a little rubber grommet on. I don't plan on using this on-off sign. I'm gonna make my own. These are gonna be put in the carbon, and I'm gonna be making a piece that's gonna fit onto the dash, where you are going to be able to control the low beam, which you remember we set a separate wire for the low beam on the innermost headlights. So when normal driving conditions, you can have both low beams on, or you can just have this low beam. When you switch on the high beam, it'll be all of the lights, and that is taken into account both with wire gauge and fuses. And now we just need a way to control the secondary inner driving light, which is going to be with these. So, waiting for parts for the big rubber boot that goes on the firewall. I just thought, why not just crack this one out and start making these pieces. I was actually planning on waiting to do this afterwards the car was sent out to paint, but instead of just waiting and doing all kinds of, you know, jobs that should be done at the same time to make sense, so it will just take too much time, I just thought, why not just get started on this. So this is the dash from the Celica, all dusty, and as most of them, there have been some sort of attempt of fitting, I don't know what they tried to fit, but they hacked out this piece where the radio normally sits. This is for this old style who has like a little square and then 2 holes with, I don't know, I think it's tuning and volume, and that's it. Yeah, something like that. And then it has this manual levers for temperature and blower and all kinds of stuff. But it also has this fake veneer. I don't know if I'm a fan, but I think it adds to the feel of the car. Also, the gear knob is wood. So I think it'll be a shame to like take that out of the equation. So this is possible to make some sort of inlay that will fit in here, which we are going to do with the carbon piece, and then we are going to fit in the carbon. Yeah, doesn't really matter how they sit now because that's not how it's gonna be, but 3 of these guys. One is going to be for a fuel pump, because I have electrical fuel pump on mine. The mechanical one and the cam for that inside the engine was removed. So I'm thinking 3 of these guys, one for fuel pump, one for the auxiliary low beam, or whatever you want to call it, and one, I haven't decided what the last one's going to be, but it will be fitting to have 3, so I will be putting 3 in there. We can just put some dumb shit on a sign and say this is for the flux capacitor. I don't know. So, inlay, I'm going to be starting off making one that fits from, I think I'll be doing it from some, I have some cardboard stuff that I use for templating when doing sheet metal. So that will be done. Make sure that it fits. Make sure that all these holes line up, because these are the holes we're gonna need for the prongs that will protrude through, and then set up so that it will look okay with the switches going through. Let's try and see if we can get this sorted out. Yeah. This is the finished part. Carbon fiber with carbon fiber with the switches. They're not going to be used for running current directly through. They'll just be used for switching relays. And this will just drop in here, just like so. And it will be a mix of vintage stuff with this new stuff. I really like these switches. They really look cool on this. They got some resistance to them. They're not just gonna like snap on and off. It gives you such a nice feel. And it just looks at home here. Next thing is, because I grind all the names and everything that goes where off, I'm going to go and I think design and cut some vinyl, which will tell what everything is and how the heater works. So I think that's gonna be next. Also, I need to install this now, and there's a few ways I could do this. 1 or 2 small set screws, something that will hold it in place, but this has just been like totally gutted, so there's not really much left. I guess I could get away with just having 2 bolts or screws in there, and that will hold it. The other option is to actually just glue it into place and leave it as a part of the dash assembly, as it would have been if it was just covered. So that might also be an option. It makes it a little bit, well, not harder, but when I need to check and install the wires, it makes it a little bit harder because I need to remove either the switches, or I need to put some longer wires on to make sure that I can test everything before fitting it all up. And the purpose with all this is getting the car up and running with the new harness before I go into more paint prep. That will literally be like the entire front half of the car totally redone. So yeah, detour. But I'm really I'm happy with this. This is just the way I wanted it. And I can't wait to see it with some vinyl on, because the white, I think I'm doing it in white vinyl. That will fit the other gauges perfectly. And for the time, and not just for the time, still to this day, this is a very beautiful dash. So, in this low light environment, the new ground has been made up. The positive that will go inside the car has been made up. The big positive to the alternator and starter has been made up. All that stuff is now ready. The entire harness has been cut down to what is needed. The only thing left for me is to install the steering column and get the harness through the firewall and fit it up with the rest of the harness. As you can see, this piece is ready to go through the firewall. All this will go inside the car and be connected. The rest is finished. I hope with that I've cut all the cancer out of this car. This is, if you've been following, this is like the 4th time that I've made a pile this big. And this is the last of the original wiring. Now there's only the dash wiring left, and that's never been a problem. So I hope that'll be it. The end of the gremlins, and this car will just go on and start and run like it should. And to finish it all off, I made this ghetto setup for the new power assisted steering column, the control unit, this little gizmo, which will adjust the I think it adjusts how sensitive the steering input versus the output will be. So I can't wait to start playing with that. I've just hooked it up and took some measurements from the motor side to see if voltage is coming through to the motor, and it is. So I can't really feel it do anything before I apply some torque to this, and I will have a torque difference on the two coils in the torque in the torque meter in this housing. But with all this being done, I can't really do anything else until I receive the final parts that I need. So I guess for now, that's it. I know I said we might get it to fire, but I'll just have to wait to the next one. Yeah, bummer, but we got a lot of work done. We got the harness almost done. Yeah, got it almost done. So as soon as it's up and running, I'll do another video with the last pieces. Now I'm gonna concentrate on putting the column back in, and then a hell of a lot of small jobs. I have a list so long of things that need paint prep and finishing and all kinds of stuff before the body goes out to paint. So again, hopefully next time we'll have the car fired up and we'll get back into paint prep so we can get this car back on the road, being as cool as it needs to be. Yeah. So if you haven't already, remember to subscribe and hit that bell for notifications. That really helps builds like this and helps me do a lot more of this, which I like. And I hope you enjoyed watching, and I'll see you on the next one. See you!